Hi, this is Keith Sheldon, son of Swift, here with this week's genealogical pursuits. Coming to you a little bit late. I was expecting to do this Tuesday night, then had a well, couple things came up. One, I had an idea that I wanted to check out. I didn't have time to check on Tuesday, uh, so then I was going to leave out to Wednesday. Plus, I kind of fell asleep right after eating dinner, watching TV before I could go up to record. So pushed off doing it tonight, and then finally, once I was all ready to go, I'm now posting this midnight Eastern time. So technically, it says 25th September. Technically, it's the 26th, but we'll do it. Try to stick to Tuesdays from now on. But when you look at what I found for this week, I think you'll agree it was a good idea to wait, give it a little bit extra. So let's start off. Welcome to Son of Swift Genealogical Pursuits. I'm your host, Keith F. Sheldon, the son of Swift. I've been doing genealogy research for well over 20 years, and I decided that going beyond sharing my research with there, I do individual sharing with family, but I also do a blog, sonofswift.tumblr.com, that has all the information on there. But I wanted to find even more ways to try to reach out, so I decided to launch this little video podcast series. Uh, Feel free to leave comments below. Send me a message. You can send me at the Tumblr page, sonofswift.tumblr.com, or you can email me at shufflin. That's the Irish spelling of shufflin at gmail.com. This week, I'm going to be talking about three families. First, a project I started last week, and unfortunately, I was hoping to have more of an update on, but it's still kind of just creeping along. Well, let's take a look at my ancestry trees. First, we've got the ongoing Garvin project. Now, for those joining us for the first time, I have this is going back. This is, I believe, four great grandmother Margaret Garvin. I have her parents, but then it's kind of a dead end. Takes them takes them back to Ireland. Here, I found in the genealogy collection of the Library of Congress, I found the Garvin genealogy, and it's all from Henry Garvin, born in 1750, emigrated to the U.S. where he fought in the Revolutionary War, and of course his descendants. They didn't have anything about who his parents were in the book. So I was looking at this, that this Henry Garvin could possibly be an uncle or maybe a great uncle to my ancestors. My ancestor was born about 1824. This man was 1750, so definitely a couple generations ahead. So just to test it out, I filled in the base information on the family from the book and have just been seeing what ancestry can find me. And what it did point me to was possible parents for Henry Garvin, James Garvin, and Margaret Cobb. Now, I've been looking at this for well over a week now, and I'm really not agreeing with it because, as you can see from the chart here, zoom in even more for those watching. Henry was born in 1750. James was born in 1699. Now, it's possible that a 51-year-old man could have a son. It's not as possible if the wife is also in her 50s. That seems a little bit unlikely from biological standards. Now, of course, I don't have information and age here listed for Margaret Cobb. I don't have anything from the biographical info that I've seen on Ancestry to give me a solid birth, but the ones I've seen all list a birth date close to 1699, which really would not fit well with the whole idea of James and Margaret being Henry's parents. So that continues to be one of those wonderful brick walls. So it's something I'm just going to have to work on as I continue. So it's a nice idea. Hopefully, someday I'll clear through the Garvin brick wall and find more about that rich family history. These Garvins connect back to Scotland, and everything I have of the Garvins doesn't go nearly that far back. But it's something to continue to work on. So now jumping over to the public tree. So here we have the Garvins. The oldest, of course, I have is Thomas, born 1821 in Antrim, Northern Ireland. And then emigrated 1840s over uh, to England and settled in Whitehaven in Cumberland. So trying to track down more information on him and his family. All I know, as I said in the very first episode, I have his biography in which it listed that he was a orphan, that he and his two brothers were orphaned, and so that really makes it difficult to track down any additional information. So I was really hoping by finding Henry Garvin's parents that I could find Thomas Garvin's family in a sort of roundabout way, get finding them from the top instead of coming at them from the bottom like I currently am. So that's where we stand on the Garvin project. This week, there were two parts of my family I wanted to focus on in my research. The first was I did a jump over to my mom's side of the family, and that is the Khans. So this is my mother's, the Johnsons, her mother being done. Maternal great grandfather, Holbert Earl Dunn, his father, Samuel Preston. Going back now, Samuel Preston was a child of John Alexander Dunn and Mary A. Junk. So continuing down the Junk family line, Mary A. Junk's mother was Rebecca Kahn. Now, why did I decide to jump all the way down here? One, you never know when you might find something. And two, I was looking back through my emails. And of course, as I said, you can reach out to me at shovelin@gmail.com. And I had an email from a cousin who has been doing research into the Khan family. Now, unfortunately, that email came in about 2015, and I responded to it about 6 months after it arrived. I was in a period of time where I wasn't able to do much genealogy research, so I wasn't really responding to anyone. And so I was going back through my emails, and I found that I responded to my cousin, distant cousin there, but never heard anything back from her. And she talked about how, in her email, about how much she has on the Khan family. And specifically, we're talking about Rebecca's father, Alexander, born 1770 in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. And she has him with his older brother, Archibald. And she being a direct descendant of Archibald. So I had already found Alexander and Archibald's parents, James Kahn, born 1745 in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and we found in the death record for Brooke County, West Virginia, and mother Rebecca Hampy or Hamp, as you can see, no birth or death information found on her. So I reached out to my cousin. I sent her a message checking in. I sent her the information I had here about James Kahn and Rebecca Ham, and just to see what she's found now that I'm doing more research again, what she could share with me. I've yet to hear back from her yet, but what I was able to do was I was able to look up on some genealogy sites her name and username and found some of the stuff that she was looking into. And she was asking a lot of questions that had a lot about cons for cons that were a generation older than James. So this would have been, there was another James Kahn who would have been by age James's grandfather. And so she had information about that and Hugh and his children, Hugh and George. And these seemed like interesting things. And I would guess seem like it has to be my great grandfather, James Kahn, has to be like a nephew of these men or grandson of this guy. And tried to make it try to fit. I had did a fill-in tree temporarily where I had as a fill-in father here to connect him to the rest. And despite trying that and had quite a few hints, in fact, there's a couple here still showing up. See, and I got hints from the Garvin test tree, but here, John Gerard Trammell. If I jump over to Gerard Trammell, his daughter Mary was married to Hugh Lee Kahn Jr. He was born 1723. So that seems fitting with possibly being a father of my John James Kahn. But nothing in the family file to say for certain. Have him born in Bladensburg in Prince George's County, Maryland, just outside DC, and dying in Loudoun County. So it doesn't quite connect to what I have for James Kahn. So, but I did fill in what information I could find from just looking around. I saw Hugh Kahn with wife Jean Veitch as these being the possible uncles or father fathers of James Kahn. So we have George Hewley Kahn Jr. and of course James Kahn 1745. Was in Bladensburg, died in Berkeley County, West Virginia. So I tried to see what fits in here. Now, see, there's a James. This is James Kahn. Most likely would not be my ancestor's father because there is a. He had a son named James Kahn. And Ancestry is able to put me information, and he was born in 1779 in Bladensburg. So that also does not fit with what I was looking at. So if my cousin is out there and is doing more research and has he got either got my email and hasn't responded yet, maybe she's looking and she might see this. Well, send me an email. I emailed you back. Any information you can provide, I'd be very welcome to have, and I'll be happy to share everything I've got. So that's it for the cons for right now. And of course, that was also a look at I was trying to also track down there is that you hate to have these little gaps in your trees, especially when you're doing so well. And this side of the family, Samuel Preston Dunn's ancestors, filled in so well. I had the Junk Family History book, and I've so much about the Dunns going back to the founding of Fairfax County, Pennsylvania, and all this stuff was coming together. But then you look and you see down here Mary Gamble, born 1780, Chester County, and her father Andrew, born Fermanagh, Northern Ireland, but no idea who his spouse is. Now I'm able to track him back generations, and in fact, this was she had the information, some information about Gamble. So this is all new information that I found since I first heard from her back in 2015, and I had to, for some just ancestry being crazy. I had a birth year and place for Josias Gamble is for his wife, but I don't have her name, so I just had to fill it in here with spouse. Hopefully, nobody else looks at this tree and think, "Oh, his wife's name was spouse with a lowercase." No, no one's that stupid, right? Right. Hopefully. Okay, so uh, okay, that's what I get for looking at the hints during the show. All right, so that continues to be just that little nick on the tree there that one of these days I hope to solve. So going back up to the Garvins, so we're getting ready to publish the history of my great grandfather John Francis Shovlin, my great grandfather John Francis Shovlin Jr. And just wanted to have just a bit more to go on. So I decided to not look at the Garvins this week, but instead to look at the Foys. Now, I have found on my own when I first started this way, way back during going through the National Archives and the searches of census data back in 2004, I found a Mary Elizabeth Foy, born about the same year with her parents, Hugh Foy, and then it made reference to Marion, and I was able to find Mary Cannon. Now, other people seem to have been able to make the same connection. So I've been for years double checking Foy, Cannon, anything going back farther. Hugh Foy, born 1803, Glenlockenmore, County Down, Northern Ireland, died Kilkeel in County Down, 1871. His wife, Mary Cannon, born 1860 in Derry, Northern Ireland. Just sitting there, brick walls, blocking me both. Well, Ancestry has this wonderful thing where if you find your family member on a census or some forms, they'll recommend other databases that you may find them in. So I was looking to try to track down Mary Elizabeth Floyd, knowing that she married my great 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 grandfather, John Richard Garvin, in 1863. And we have from looking at her profile here, third great grandmother, have married January 1863 in Whitehaven, Cumberland, England. And that's from the marriage records that I found on Ancestry. And then we have them coming to the United States in 1872, aboard the Egypt, husband John, children Thomas, Bridget, John, and Margaret. Margaret being my great great grandmother. So now I had that. I knew she had to be in England in the 1861 English census. So I searched and searched because if they got married in January of 1863, they at least knew each other in 1862. And there's a good chance they knew each other in 1861 at the time of the census. So you would think 1861, excuse me, I was like something in my throat there. There has to be some way. How did they meet? They probably lived near each other in England, in Cumberland, England. So I looked in the 1861 census and I was able to track down. And since I don't not logged into the official ancestry account here, I'm using PDF printouts of the screens where I found there the 1861 census. Okay, for some reason it's not letting me. Oh, give me a second, audience. No one's currently watching live, but someone will be watching later while I figure this out. Yeah, this is what you get with a recording live and broadcasting live. Mm, mm, uncheck. Okay, so now, hmm, all right, so now let's see if it will work. Really upsetting if it doesn't, and it doesn't. So, okay, here, let's try. So, we're just going to do a quick relaunch here and uh, be able to bring that back up. While that's doing that, let's talk about uh, some of the various other things I cover. Uh, Remember to check out my merch store, tpublic.com/store/Swift, where put some of my uh, different designs up there. There's political designs, there's things about my local home area of Lorton, Virginia. Uh, there's things about like, saying lines from the Hamilton musical and just various other things up there. One thing I do want to talk about uh, the charity that I connect with most. And I was growing up, I watched as my great aunt Dorothy, uh, granddaughter, slipped away because of Alzheimer's, not understanding how she would see me and then not, really connect the dot on to that was, who I was and like finding I had a My Buddy doll, and she would always take the hat off of the My Buddy doll and try to put it on my head, thinking it was my hat. And just so I saw the scourge of Alzheimer's disease in her, and then of course it struck my grandfather, her brother, not too long after that, and he lived with us for a short time before going to a special care facility for Alzheimer patients, where you saw that people just lost their bits of their lives. Like, where some days you could talk to him and he might remember who you are, or he might remember you from the last time you visited, not so much remember that you are their grandchild. Or it, I'm all about saving stories. That's part of doing my family history is saving my family history story. So knowing what Alzheimer's disease does, it literally steals your life away from you. You forget who you are. You have people who forget their whole lives, their children. You have people who have learned, yeah, emigrated from other countries that forget English and go back to their native languages. You have people that, like at the facility my grandfather is at, they had put pictures of, they had you put a picture of your loved one on their door rather than their name, and they kept on like saying every once in a while to update to an older picture because they didn't recognize themselves in that picture because it was don't see themselves as being that old. Then so I lost great aunt, grandfather, and then my great uncle Vince passed from dementia uh, not too many years after that. So when I first heard about what was first called the Memory Walk, now it's the Alzheimer's Walk, I was all about taking part in it. We can do walks all across the country, and I've been taking part of the national walk here in Washington D.C. And that walk this year is coming up this Saturday, September 28th at 9:30 in the morning on the National Mall. We walking a 2 mile walk up from the Washington Monument up to the Capitol and then back down again. Uh, every year I try to take part of it. My two daughters have joined me, and we bring our dog along so that we make it an enjoyable walk for the kids. But we dress in our purple, the symbol of the Alzheimer's Walk. So I'll be walking this Saturday. We'll walk to end Alzheimer's. And if you too feel you'd like to see, I mean, it's the sixth leading cause of death in country in the United States, and it just really gets you how it just steals a person's life away. So I do the best I can to try to help make people aware of Alzheimer's, and hopefully the medicine will get better, medical health system will get better, and we will reach a day where Alzheimer's is no more. There's been huge breakthroughs the past couple of years, so we hope just to keep things going. So click on the link, put it in the write up as well. I mean, if you can donate something, help, great. If not, yeah, you can go to act.alz.org and search for my team name. It's the Shovelins. It's myself and my daughters. If you can help out at all, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, back to the research. So now we should have everything working. And here we go. All right, so I found Mary Foy here in the 1861 census in Harrington, Cumberland, which is Whitehaven, the same registration district as my as her as John Richard Garvin. This is 2 years before they were married. Harrington is at the northern end of Whitehaven, while Egremont, where he lived, was on the southern end. So there is a few miles distance, but it seemed like that might be a possibility. Now, here she's listed as a servant in the home of the Beatty family here, 24 years old servant. So now, when it gave me the hints for other trees, it didn't connect me to the 1863 marriage record, the 1863, the 1872 immigration record, the 1880 U.S. Census, any of that. But it was interesting just trying to find there. So then I decided, okay, I brought up John Richard Garvin and his 1861 census record, living with his parents. And then I brought up the 1851 and the 1841 censuses because he was alive for all of them and Mary was alive for all three of them. So using that as comparison point, I then searched the 1851 census and the 1841 census. And knowing that there was a Mary on those ones, I was able to track down. Here she is in the 1851 census, 13-year-old Mary, daughter of Jane Foy, living in Harrington, the same place where she was living as a servant. And, yeah, there we go. Living, but this time with a full family of Foys. So this would be, if that was our Mary, then this would be her mother Jane, her sisters Anne, Isabella, and Jane, and her brother Thomas. So then it gave me the hint towards the 1841 census. So then I went back to 1841, and there I find Mary Foy, 3 years old, and this continues to be in Harrington, Allerdale above Derwent. And this lists her with her sisters Anne and Isabella, as I saw in the 1851. But here we have her father, George. So George most likely passed away sometime between 1841 and 1851. Now, whether this is my ancestor and her family, I'm not certain. If I go through the different family history trees that are saved on Ancestry for Mary Foy attached to John Richard Garvin, almost all of the 64 that I saw on Ancestry point to what I have in my tree, the Hugh Foy and Mary Cannon. Well, when I looked up Mary Cannon, it gave me a record for Mary and Hugh living in Tennessee in 1870. That didn't make sense. And then I looked and I kept on finding them other places of them being in the United States, having gone from Ireland directly to the United States. Whereas my Mary, I had thought, went from Ireland to Cumberland, England, and where she met John Richard Garvin, or maybe they had met in Ireland and came over together. But that wasn't making as much sense. And when I did find these 1841 census things, I then also found through the suggestions from Ancestry, a couple other files, those being the select births file here, which lists Mary Foy, born, baptized 21st of September 1837 in Harrington. George and Jane. So that definitely is the Mary that I saw in the 1841 and 1851 census. Then we also had the civil registration births. That's this one here. So that lists her being born sometime between July and September in Whitehaven. So that's a Mary Foy, decently close. And I'm beginning to think that this is probably my actual ancestor and not the one that I had the information for. Because that Mary Foy, well, I found living with her parents in the United States. And it just wasn't common back then for you to emigrate to the States, then return. So the likelihood, especially with the potato famine in Ireland, the Great Famine in Ireland, what it did to traveling, you weren't going back and forth. You were coming to the United States, and that's where you were staying. So now we have our Mary Foy, and just going to keep on searching, but it's very much likely I'll make a decision this week, but it's very much looking like Mary Elizabeth Foy that I have here was actually born in September 1837 in Harrington, Cumberland, England, in the Whitehaven district, the same district her husband, John Richard Garvin, lived in after emigrating in shortly after being born in Ireland in 1844, and that her parents are George and Jane. And once I make this change, it's going to be interesting to see, considering how many trees are out there. Like, you look at the hints here, you have Mary Foy, Pennsylvania U.S. marriages. That's, of course, Mary Garvin, 1871 England census, which I knew I had. And, and these Mary Elizabeth Foy, it shows here the Mary Louise Tracy Coates family tree, but there are 64 trees that have Mary Foy on her. And most of them list her parents as Hugh Foy and Mary Cannon. So it'd be a tough choice, but what do you think? Should I go ahead and make the change? Should I change it to George Foy and Jane? There was what, the 1841. They were both 30 years old, so that put them about birth of 1811, and the records point to them being from Farringdon in the UK. So that's one less connection to Ireland, which I can live with, because I still have quite a few Irish connections there. But I think this is a change that needs to happen, and then when it does, who knows? It might end up making. You know what? Let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna be bold here. Yeah. So that was a GeniaNet. That was someone else's research that went into that. So we're gonna instead 11 Kingdom. Remove that source. And of course, once I get this all worked out, I'll figure out. So quick edit. We know his name's George, and we knew he died before 1851. And what was the name of that town? That was Harrington. Harrington, Cumberland. So just that easy. go ahead and remove that link. So yeah, I wasn't the only one that found this connection. Various others did. Leave that as laborer. I don't know anything more about George right now, so we'll say that. Right, they're still showing me the Garvin hints there. All right, so then we go over Mary and change her. Jane. Don't know her last name yet. 1811. That's my son's 41 census. Then that. Remove that reference. All right. So there we have that. And then, of course, I can't be certain. Well, no, I know that these ones aren't correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete these people off of my tree because they are, based on what I'm finding here, not the ones that I'm related to. Especially that was weird that Bridget Floyd was born in Angus, County Dundee, Scotland. It's the information was just all over the place. Okay, so now we see what happens next. Go ahead and check the hints. See, it's still pointing to Q. So yeah, it's got George Foy. It knows that it's not actually George Foy, but it's going to keep on trying to give me the old information. Ignore these because I don't know those are her. And it'll give me new hints in time. Sometimes it's pretty quick how quickly they find this information. Other times not so much. So we'll see what happens. Watch next week. See what happened from this change. Whether or not this is the major change I think it might be the key to unlock the Foy family. We'll see. For now, thanks for watching. Be sure to check this out, sonofsource.tumblr.com. And of course, if you can, help us out as we walk to end Alzheimer's this Saturday. 18-page shoveling there. Fighting for a different future, support our team, walk to end Alzheimer's. Hopefully, we've raised enough money, we'll find a cure. Or find out at least what causes it so that can lead to treatments. But thank you for watching. 40 minutes, got a bit long tonight. But there was a lot to cover. So leave your comments, leave your questions, and I'll check them out and see if we'll find more. All right. With that, have a good night.